for this weekend's Capitol Report. Pat McGuigan is here. We're talking, Governor Mary Fallin made a big announcement this week. They will not start a state-run, a state-based insurance exchange, and we will not expand Medicaid or Medicare. What does that mean for Oklahomans?
The decision not to expand Medicaid is allowed under the Supreme Court's decision, the way that the court interpreted the underlying law. It doesn't necessarily mean there won't be some growth in Medicaid. It means that the state of Oklahoma is not going to abide by the mandate in the law, which became optional. So
Right.
it is optional. And the whole reason is it's not affordable.
Okay.
And the insurance exchange idea it requires a government function of mother may I, saying what is and is not to be included in an insurance program that makes the exchange, which is an online mechanism for people to find out about available health insurance programs. The government of Oklahoma, the way that Fallin put it was, it's not only unaffordable, but if we go down this path, we won't have the resources needed for transportation, education, corrections, and other core functions of government. Greater access to health insurance coverage is something that Fallin and the Republican leaders in the legislature both want to bring about. And I think there may be some tinkering in the offing with a program that has a lot of bipartisan support and that would have died if ObamaCare, as some people call it, was fully implemented. And that's Insure Oklahoma, which is a way of providing premium assistance to the working poor so that they can purchase insurance for themselves.
Okay, so has this announcement gotten her opposition, or has she met a lot of support with it?
Well, among Oklahoma voters overwhelmingly approved a state question saying don't implement this legislation, and that was actually in 2010. And if anything, feelings appear to have intensified. The governor also has strong support from her legislative base, the Republicans. She did draw criticism from groups like Oklahoma Policy Institute out of Tulsa, Dave Blatt, who's more on the progressive end of the scale, I guess you could say. And Dave gave a pretty stirring criticism of what the governor's done. Agreeing with him in part was Joe Dorman, a Rush Springs Democrat, who was particularly worried about the exchange because he's afraid that we'll lose local and state control. Scott Inman, the Democratic leader, was just comprehensively critical of what the governor did. He said he understood the problems people have with the federal legislation, but he feels like since the election that's a settled issue. So that's a thumbnail. Now, let me talk about the money just a little and we'll go on. The costs of this are staggering. And even if its advocates say it's billions of dollars over the course of a 7 to 10 year period, but they kind of dismiss that cost by saying, well, the federal government will pay for it. Well, where does the federal government get its money? From Oklahoma taxpayers and others. At the very minimum, the state cost would be $475 million over a period of 7 or 8 years, and Fallin just made a decision that that was unaffordable.
Okay, now we've just passed the Thanksgiving holiday, but a lot of people are still feeling the effects of the recession that we were in. What is going to feed hope during this holiday season? I mean, where can people turn? Well,
I have to say that the same governor that some people are denouncing for the insurance, the ObamaCare decision, led a remarkable drive to raise food and funds to support both Oklahoma City and Tulsa food banks. And they announced their success the other day, and it was really pretty amazing. They more than doubled the amount of resources raised last year, enough food for 2.6 million meals, massive involvement by the corporate community as well as individuals, the Scouts, Bishop McGuigan's Catholic high school kids from other schools as well. That's kind of at the macro level, the big picture level. Down at the micro level, the Jesus House, I want to make sure I get this name right, Gable Gottwal's 72 lawyers, they raised, helped Jesus House raise enough resources to hand out 1,200 food baskets for people over the week. Now, there's a question that Cardinal Dolan of New York is posing, and that's who's my neighbor? And what does being a neighbor mean in the modern age of high technology? And he's advocating more and more personal connection between people, despite these wonderful devices we have that help us communicate, that keep us separated in some ways. And I think Oklahomans answer that question, who's my neighbor, pretty well. And it doesn't here involve government as much as it does in the assumptions of people elsewhere. And personally, I kind of respect and admire that approach. Who is my neighbor? That's a question that's been asked of rabbis for centuries, Jesus as well as his predecessors, and those that have come after him. And the way we answer that question says a lot about a culture.
Yeah, we all have people around us that need a helping hand. We just need to reach out and help them. So.
That's right.
All right, thank you so much, Pat. Have a great weekend, folks.